Dear students, let us learn the procedure of reporting the vision and educational assessment of students with visual impairment. Specific assessment for students with low vision. One of the most important prerequisites in planning a student's educational program is assessing the student's strengths and weaknesses. Assessment for students with low vision includes comprehensive evaluations by members of students' multidisciplinary team. Areas of assessment include functional vision assessment, expanded core curricular assessment, learning media assessment, clinical low vision evaluations, and ophthalmic and optometric evaluations. These tests are specific to vision related fields. Functional vision assessment. The functional vision assessment includes a variety of evaluations that test the child's use of vision and visual efficiency in daily activities. Assessment administered over several sessions determines how the child accesses his or her visual environment, such as how far he or she can sit from the chalkboard or what print size she or he is able to see. A certified teacher of students with visual impairment completes the assessment. Contributions from the child's orientation and mobility instructor are helpful as well. Parents, caregivers, and the child's teachers are asked to give input about how the child performs in the community and the school setting. From this assessment, a report is generated that addresses multiple issues. Near and distance acuity. An acuity measurement is taken at near range using a near vision acuity chart. This measurement is often recorded in print size. For example, the teacher may record that the child can read large print. Distance visual acuity is typically measured at a distance of 10 or 20 feet. A distance vision chart such as the Snellen is often used. Other functional distance tasks may include the distance at which the child can see print on the whiteboard or imitate hand movements given by the physical education teacher. Peripheral visual field. Peripheral vision is the ability to see movement or object outside of the immediate line of vision. Field loss is measured in degrees. For example, if a child has a 20-degree field loss, his or her visual field does not extend through a complete 180 degrees left to right. Reading level speeds. An informal reading inventory indicates the grade level at which a child is reading as well as how fast she or he is reading in comparison to her or his peers. Current print functioning. The functional vision assessment should state the child's primary mode of reading, whether it is regular print, large print, optical devices or braille. Examples of both near and distance information. The assessment report should include examples of environmental features such as faces, signs and travel cues the child can see and at what distance the child can see each feature. Light sensitivity. Light sensitivity has implications for how the student performs in a variety of illuminated settings. Children with diagnoses such as albinism or achromatopsia are significantly affected by higher levels of illumination and often perform tasks better under less illumination. There are also visual conditions for which additional lighting is necessary. For a majority of visual conditions, glare will adversely affect visual functioning. Color perception. Color perception is the ability to perceive differences in color because many facets of daily life are influenced by color. Example, traffic lights, crayons, clothing. A child's ability to differentiate colors needs to be known. Convergence. Convergence is the necessary inward movement of the eyes in order to focus on a near object. Eye movements. Eye movements of children and youth refer to the ability to track a moving object in vertical, horizontal, oblique and circular directions. Such eye movements are used when reading, copying work from the whiteboard, playing sports and driving. Eye preference. Eye preference is a term used to describe the eye a person prefers to use for accessing his or her visual environment. Although not always, the preferred eye is often the eye with a better acuity. Muscle balance. Muscle balance is a term used to describe the alignment of the eyes and how they move together. Proper alignment is needed for the eyes to work together. In addition, proper muscle balance is essential for the ability to converge. Binocular vision. Binocular vision is a person's ability to perceive three-dimensional depth by fusing the images of the eye. Depth perception. Depth perception is the ability to distinguish an object's solidity and its position in space relative to other objects not in the same plane. Visual efficiency. Visual efficiency refers to how well a child completes tasks that require a visual skill. Educational implications. Educational implications are generally statements that address how a child's visual impairment will affect the child's functioning in a school setting. Recommendations. Recommendations are typically statements that reflect suggestions from the teacher for students with visual impairments about programming and how to make successful adaptations and accommodations. Learning media assessment. One of the first questions asked about child's learning is what his or her primary reading medium will be. Teachers and parents may be uncertain as to whether a child should learn braille, rely on large print, or use regular print for accessing reading material. The purpose of the learning media assessment is to determine the most effective medium for accessing instruction and teaching methods. A certified teacher of students with visual impairments completes this assessment. The learning media assessment covers both general learning media and literacy media. General learning media are instructional materials and instructional methods. Literacy media refers to reading and writing in print and braille. Clinical low vision evaluations. A clinical low vision evaluation assesses whether or not a child will benefit from optical devices such as monocular telescope and or magnifiers. An optometrist or ophthalmologist who specializes in low vision and the prescription of optical devices perform the clinical low vision evaluation. The evaluation centers on how the child uses his or her vision on the daily basis in both the school setting and at home. Measures for visual acuity, visual fields, and color vision are taken. In addition, the clinical low vision specialist will check for refractive errors and the potential for the student to benefit from optical devices. Often devices are prescribed to meet the specific request of the individual. For example, a person may want to access prices on items in the grocery store. The doctor may then prescribe a pocket magnifier that can be conveniently placed in a purse or pocket. One of the most beneficial results of the low vision evaluation is the link made between medical and functional aspects of low vision loss. Ophthalmologic and optometric evaluations. Only doctors can perform ophthalmologic and optometric evaluations. A medical doctor completes the ophthalmologic evaluation and a doctor of optometry completes the optometric evaluation. The main purposes of the ophthalmology exam are to diagnose eye conditions and examine the health of the eye, as well as to give a prognosis of the visual impairment. A typical ophthalmologic exam involves dilating the person's eye in order to view the interior of the eye. Acuity and visual field measurements are taken as well as a check for glaucoma. Use of functional vision is not emphasized. During optometric evaluations, the doctor verifies the need for refractive lenses and prescribes glasses to improve acuity loss to the greatest extent possible. An optometric is unable to medically diagnose a visual impairment. Academic standard testing. Academic testing is primarily the responsibility of the child's classroom teacher. The children with low vision, however, often require modifications or adaptations in order to complete standard testing in their schools. A teacher for students with visual impairment and a general education teacher should collaborate before administering any test. Needed modifications may include extended time, enlarged copies, and use of manipulatives. Individualized educational plan. Children and youth with low vision have unique educational needs. Research documents that these students often require direct instruction by a teacher for students with visual impairment. in areas that are not typically addressed for other students. All students who meet the criteria for visual impairments as per government classification are assisted of their individual needs. This document, called an individualized educational plan, is used to place a child in the most appropriate educational setting. A thorough assessment for students with visual impairments is the key in creating adequate IEP, and the assessment process is an essential component in developing appropriate goals and objectives for the student. Expanded core curriculum. The expanded core curriculum covers additional areas of learning not addressed in the core curriculum that must be assessed and taught for students who are visually impaired. These areas include concepts and skills that are often learned incidentally by sighted peers. Areas of the expanded core curriculum include orientation and mobility, social interaction, creation and leisure, use of assistive technology, independent living skills, career education, visual efficiency, self-determination, and compensatory academic skills, including communication modes. A teacher for students with visual impairment must assess each area before beginning a student's educational plan. Evaluation in the areas listed above are critical in order to identify and address weaknesses in the student's repertoire. Students with low vision are often able to pass as being competent in areas of the expanded core curricular because their difficulties are less apparent than those students who are blind and have not received any ECC instruction. Teachers for students with visual impairment must not overlook the needs of these students with low vision when assessing areas of expanded core curriculum. Assistive technology assessment. Assistive technology, an area of the expanded core curriculum, refers to any product or service that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional abilities of students with low vision. Technology assessment addresses a student's need for such equipment as screen readers, screen magnification, scanners, adaptive keyboards, portable note takers, closed circuit television, augmentative communication devices, braille translation software, braille embossers, and braille writing equipment. Assessment in these areas is essential to ensure appropriate match of technology to the student's needs. Report writing. The functional vision evaluation report written by the teacher of students with visual impairment after conducting the FVE should be specific with the details about the student's performance on individual tasks in clearly described situations. It should be factual with conclusions based on clear, objective observations rather than opinions or broad generalization. The functional vision evaluation report should be applicable and have direct links made to the task and activities normally performed by the student. It should include a summary for the use as a quick reference by members of the educational team. Finally, it should include practical and specific recommendations that will assist the team members in providing for the student's educational needs related to the visual impairment. Background information. The functional vision assessment should include the student's eye condition, that is summary of the current eye exam, diagnosis, prognosis, acuity, recommended visual aids if any, and eye glasses prescribed and when it is appropriate to wear them, along with the physician's name and the date of the report and definitions of various diagnoses. Statement of the reason for evaluation. It should include the reason the evaluation is being conducted. It should indicate if the student has been receiving vision services and if the evaluation is part of the re-evaluation process or if it is due to change in vision. When evaluating a student for the first time, it should indicate the visual concerns and why the student was referred for services. Functional vision observations. It should include a description of the location of this evaluation, a description of the lighting and the student's positioning. It should describe observed activities and a description of the student's behavior. Indicate whether the student wore and tolerated prescribed glasses. Performance on functional vision evaluation items. A detailed explanation of how the student performed on the various areas including ocular status, ocular motor skills, object discrimination, visual acuities and visual perceptual skills should be included. Include information on the student's near vision hobbies such as reading, sewing, stamp collecting, artwork, electronics or other near vision hobbies. Evaluators should not use diagnostic terms unless they have been included in medical reports because it is not the evaluator's role to make a medical diagnosis. Eligibility statement. The evaluator must determine whether the student is eligible for services based on functioning that has been observed, and he or she must explain the reasons for that determination. For example, it is my professional opinion that if this student does or does not meet the eligibility criteria for visually disabled as defined by the government rules and norms, the decision is based upon the results of the eye specialist evaluation and this functional vision evaluation. Summary. The summary should describe the student's strength including current adaptations the student is currently successful in using. It should also describe the student's needs and discuss how performance is affected by the visual impairment and by providing information on students' learning style, utilization of visual information and other strength unique to individual students who are visually impaired. This section of the report should explain the connections between particular recommendations and the visual functioning of the students so that this section of the report should explain the connection between particular recommendations and the visual functioning of the student so that parents and other teachers will more clearly understand the importance of the recommendations. Make recommendations. Environmental adaptations. The report may recommend adaptation to the educational environment to facilitate the use of vision. These can include variations in lighting, color, contrast, distance and other characteristics that enhance a student's visual efficiency. When possible, describe with respect to the student's responsibility for making the adaptations. Methods and material adaptations. This area may identify instructional methods and materials for meeting goals and objectives. It may indicate special considerations for classroom organizations and changes in routine. Include recommendations about time modification, positioning considerations for students, physical education modification, and environmental and instructional material or equipment modifications. Vision specific instruction. Recommend instructional and compensatory strategies including the actual areas that will require intervention. May include instruction or guidance in the development of specific visual skills, the use of equipment or optical devices, or practice of compensatory skills. Recommend the type of services that should be provided by the teacher of students with visual impairment or the O&M instructor. This may include instruction or guidance in the development of specific visual skills, the use of equipment or optical devices, or the practice of compensatory skills. The teacher of students with visual impairment will collaborate with a general education teacher and recommend accommodations. The teacher of visually impaired student will need to stay in contact with the classroom teacher and reading specialist about any difficulty the student is having accessing the print. If reading efficiently is difficult for a student, the reading medium assessment has confirmed that print is the student's primary mode of learning. A referral to a reading specialist should be considered. Additionally, if the student has difficulty developing legible print, even when provided with adapted devices and materials, an evaluation by an occupational therapist should be considered to determine if the student needs support in fine motor skills. This is all about report writing of various assessment done for students with visual impairment. Thank you.